Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Bryan podcast. On today's show, my good friend David Osadebey joins Ryan and I in the studio. David is from Nigeria. He started training at Simaero in 2018 as a brand new commercial pilot. He enrolled on an Embraer 145 type rating, like so many others before him. David was, however, different. He embodied a growth mindset like I've never seen before. Through sheer hard work and determination, David has become one of the most competent, hard-working aviators I have ever met. He's a mentor to young African aviators and has earned the highest respect amongst his instructors and colleagues. Today, David is the captain on a Legacy 600, and it's an absolute pleasure to have him in our studio today. David, what does being an aviator mean to you?
Okay. If you have to Google the term an aviator, you obviously see it defines a pilot, but not all pilots are aviators. In my opinion, I feel like the difference between a pilot and an aviator is interest. So obviously, we all go to fly an airplane after the day's job. You drop your bags and then you go home. An aviator actually has like this extra instinct. Okay, I have interest in. I would want to learn more about the industry. I want to learn more about this airplane I fly. I want to learn more about the environment to which this airplane flies in. I want to learn more about the maintenance, the everything that has to do with being everything that has to do with an airplane. Basically, is that keen interest that differentiates the aviator and just any other pilot. So you can even have someone who is just around the corner, but he has that keen interest, and that keen interest is what makes an aviator. And to me, that's my opinion of an aviator.
I
That's
love that answer.
Yeah, me too. That's a great answer, Dave. Couldn't have said it better myself. In fact, I guess what you
No,
are
you
saying
wouldn't
there.
have said it better yourself.
Listen to
Let's
this.
just get real here
Yeah.
at the beginning. Huh? I have to bring someone else on the show to bring up the quality here, Ryan.
I told you about the amount of abuse that I take on the show. All the shit I have to listen to from this guy. But we still do this for fun. But yeah, it's a great way of saying it, Dave. I suppose the key word there would be passion.
Passion, yeah.
Yeah, so passion. What is passion? Ryan knows about this. I've got a little PowerPoint presentation that I show to pilots that are busy, that we may be training, but it might just be someone that comes along, because I'm sure you get this a lot.
Yeah.
David, I want to be a pilot. What can I do?
Yeah.
And before I do anything, I ask them a few questions like, who were the Wright brothers? Tell me about the landing on the Hudson River. Anything basic like this. And a lot of the time, the prospective pilot's got absolutely no clue about what you're talking about. And to me, there's a inherent level of passion missing. Now, you're the opposite of that, and exactly what you said. And if I go back to 2018, when you started here, it was that level of passion and that interest in knowing, hey, I want to know a bit more. Not just what do I need for the next session. It's like, I want to know about the plane, like you say with the engineers. How does this thing actually work? How does the industry work? And that, I love that answer, because that is one way of digging a bit deeper. And it's, I suppose testament, one of, your attitude there, one of the reasons why you are where you are today. So, yeah, as I said, it's very cool to have you here.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure.
And you've had a busy couple of weeks.
Yeah, actually.
What's happened?
The whole wedding plan and all that, having to travel around to get customarily married and all that.
Yeah.
And it's more like an adventure, because obviously I had to see places in South Africa I've never been to, like East London, very beautiful place.
You've never been?
Yeah, I've never been. Just Joburg. Okay, I flew to Cape Town recently. That was last year, in December. But other places in South Africa I've never been to. So it was more like an adventure for me.
But now flying around in the Legacy, you must have been to a few cool places. And I just want to go back a little bit here as well.
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough to be an instructor on a small portion of David's command upgrade. And, when a guy arrives so prepared, so enthusiastic, so willing to learn, well, that was him. And it puts you as the instructor in this totally different frame of mind, because now you sit there and you start learning a bit from him, and then this whole sort of circle starts. And then as soon as he does something, I commend him for it. He asks a question, and then this whole sort of roller coaster of knowledge just starts going, and you end up, what it's like you and I at the pub.
There's an infinite amount of knowledge that comes out of this session.
The conversation just goes and goes. So it's just one of those things. But Dave, just tell me about. Let's go back a bit, and let's go back to 2018. And obviously, you're a new commercial pilot. You didn't know at that stage. You hadn't met any of us, and I mean, where did you draw your inspiration from? I mean, why did you arrive so prepared back then? How did you? Was it something that you grew up with? Did you get that from your folks? Where did it come from?
Okay. I'll take you a bit back to the whole story leading up to my aviation career. I started off, obviously, growing up with parents who worked in aviation. My dad was an air traffic controller, but he had a PPL. And then growing up, I was sort of inquisitive about everything he does. Like, Dad, what's this? What's this diagram? What's this book? And I would pick up books and how to be a pilot. It was a blue book, then with a yellow painting of an airplane.
Yeah, Bryan used to read one of those.
And I'll pick it up and I'll be like, oh, I didn't know what he meant actually.
Yeah.
So I had this running passion, and then I took it into flying school. I did very well during my training, and afterward, I didn't get a job as opposed to what everyone should have thought. Oh, this guy, you just finished, he's a bright student, he's supposed to get a job immediately, but that didn't happen. So the time frame within.
Sorry, Dave, was that a sign of the times in Nigeria in 2018? Because it seems like there was a period where everyone was battling to get jobs, and then there was this whole rush of airlines, and so things have changed a bit since then, hey?
Yeah, it was a break between the break actually started between 2014 to 2018.
Mm-hmm.
I completed my training in 2014 February, and I got my CPL license in May. So within that period, airlines were not recruiting. There were no jobs at the moment. If you needed to get into an airline, you would actually require experience and type ratings. And then my parents were like, we just sent you off to flying school, so getting a type rating is going to be hectic. It's going to cost more money. And so I had to wait. And the wait period actually taught me a few things. They said there's this saying that says, never make opportunity meet you unprepared. So I was like, if I'm to get a job now, what am I going to say? What's going to differentiate me from the other guys? What's going to give me a yardstick when I have the opportunity to show what I have? So I started going through every single thing. I went through all the books, all the subjects I had during PPL, CPL. I read every single book. Ace Technical was my best friend back then. I would go through it. I could even tell you the page where this was written and all that. So I reviewed every single book, every single topic, and it gave me this opportunity to have like a deeper understanding of what basically at that point in time, some of us students would obviously just want to read to pass the exams. But at that point in time for me, it was more like reading to understand. And then I learned a few things, like a lot of things, I won't say a few things. And I carried that on to the training. When I had the opportunity, obviously, to do the type rating, I was like, the one thing I don't want to do is haven't gotten this amount of money spent towards you getting a type rating, and then you get here and you just mess it all up. I told myself, nope, I have to work harder. I started reading everything. I looked around for notes, everything the CBTs, I would ask the guys who had previously done the training, guys, please, could you help me with the CBT? I would like, and they were like, no, you can go there. You'll go through the CBT when you get there. I was like, no, I'm not going to South Africa unprepared. So that preparation before an opportunity has always kept me going. And I always tell the younger guys out there who are coming in that you're only as important as what is stored up in you. So if you don't have enough information, then you pretty much are just like an empty barrel. So you need to have a lot in store, a wealth of information. By the time you get to something you're unfamiliar with, then it shows forth, because then you have residual information to present.
I love that. It reminds me of a saying I once heard as well, where they say, chance favors the prepared mind.
Perfect.
And that's exactly what you were thinking.
Preparation before opportunity.
Yeah.
What a valuable lesson that is. So you're saying between 2014, 2018 was simply you getting ready and then taking what is perhaps could be seen as a negative and turning it into a positive thing.
Yes.
And I mean, geez, isn't that what life is all about? I'm a big sort of proponent in that. I think that everything has a positive angle to it. It doesn't matter how negative it is. If you flip it over, there's a positive angle to it. Something else that, finding a bit of value in that. It's again, I'm always mentioning the vol on this show, but if you have a negative thing, and let's take someone else with perhaps not as good of a mindset as you could look at that little period and say, you know what, I'm in the wrong country. I haven't been given the opportunity, so I'm going to give up. I'm not going to do any work. It's a negative thing. I'm going to change career. Even, this is not for me. Then of course the opportunity does come along and maybe you don't perform as you would. But by turning it into a positive, you end up finding opportunity along the way, little things along the way that had you not had that little gap, you would never have known. The other thing it does, anything positive goes in your mind, goes out your mind. So you've got this free, open mind, which enables you to think. Anything negative, you know what it's like. Finance, health, all those things. Where do they hover around? In your mind. You end up with this full mind all the time, and it's terrible. So to turn it around, make it positive, has got benefits, and obviously on the productivity side for sure, but also just a general mindset side. All right, so you take the leap, and you arrive, and you come here for your type rating, and you met with a few instructors, and particularly my dad, Keith. He really loves you. He just thinks you're fantastic, because I think he saw a bit of himself in you as well, a desire to work, and Keith's passion, I wouldn't even say is my dad's passion. It's probably, I wouldn't even say it's aviation. It's teaching young aviators and then passing knowledge on. But you can only do that if you are passing it on to someone who wants it passed on too. So to find someone like yourself that is willing, able, ready, and just wants to absorb everything like a sponge, I think that's where the connection between my dad and yourself came in. So take us back there to 2018, and
there was a funny part of the training when we got in the first class. I think it was Dave Sands in getting familiar with everyone, and then kid walks in, and he's like, "When was the last time you flew?" And this guy was like, 2 years ago, and this one was like a year ago, and the other one was like, and then he gets to my turn, and I'm like, close to 5 years. He was like, "Oh God, you guys are the ones who give us a lot of problems." And that struck me. I was like, is that an extra session loading? And then I was like, I told my friend afterwards, I was like, bro, we need to find time. Whatever it is, I'm not paying for an extra session. We have to work hard. And, the thing is, if you meet someone who you have the same kind of attitude, I'll call it attitude because has nothing to do with knowledge. You both can have the same level of knowledge, but the attitude towards this thing we're into, towards everything aviation, towards piloting, towards everything we do, it actually helps a lot, because my partner at the time, Nanjul Dakar, had that same attitude towards, he had the passion, he had everything, he wanted to learn. He was also like me, he wanted to put effort, so it wasn't a struggle. So we'd sit down together, work hard, take our time to read, and I was ahead in terms of going through the CBT and all that. So another way I actually retain information is by telling someone about it. So I would tell him, okay, bro, this is the system. I'd explain everything I know about it. And if you have questions, we'll go through the questions together. So we went through every single thing all the way. And getting into the sim, the ground school was proper, like everything was very good. We did our best, actually. And getting into the sim, the first session, before the sim, I would actually take some of the other guys who are Nigerians who came about the same time, would go into the class, and then I'll scribble a few things on the board. I didn't know so much about jet engines, but I tried to learn a few things, like, okay, I was getting used to, okay, sock, squeeze, bang and blow and all this. And everything related to what I was faced with at that point in time was very important to me, because I didn't want my parents to spend some extra money. So I'll take the guys in, would practice a few things, go have a burger, come back and do a few things. And then going into the paper tiger, it became like a daily stuff for me. And then there's this thing I would actually want to put out there, particularly for everyone who is listening and those who are upcoming. When you study the books and you want to have a visual experience of flying, I would actually encourage them to use the simulator. For me, it helped. The simulator, like your table simulators, those on the PC ones.
Explain and flight simulator.
Yeah. Because then it actually puts the picture of what I wanted to see in my front. So every single time I would fly the simulator, I would go through my flows in the simulator, try and do a few instrument procedures on the simulator, because obviously you can't get handling from the simulator. So I'll try and practice my instruments, know how to read an earpiece, because I flew all analog all through. So it gave me more of an edge. And we got into the sim, we had our first session. After every session, we'll take everything from that session or write everything down. I could be having a first session and then something the instructor said, I'll take it down. And at some point, the instructor will be like, you're writing too much. But I'll take it down. And that's something I'll look at when I get to my room and all that. So we'll review every single thing. Oh, bro, I made this mistake. Stop. I write things to myself. I'll be like, stop saying this too much. Stop holding the thrust levers at this point. And I write it to myself, because every time I look at those things, it gets into my head again. Like, okay, you're speaking to yourself more like it, and it gets stuck. And we did that over and over again, and it worked for us. And our sixth session, which we had with Dean, we did so well. My final session was quite hectic, because we had never done like a short runway takeoff and short runway landings and all that. But that was what we were faced with. So he gave us an opportunity to think. And we thought as aviators, and it helped us to have crossed that bridge. So that's more like.
Well, there's two things that I want to talk to you about there, because there's obviously some parallels with Ryan and I. I'm sure all our listeners know, but you might not know, David. We were simulator partners in 2010 for our CRJ ratings in Berlin. We didn't know each other, but same thing. We worked hard together, and you need a willing partner to do that. You got to find someone that's willing to go sit at that paper tiger and go through the calls. Unfortunately, it doesn't always work that way. Sometimes you end up with one person willing to do the work, or you end up with one person that I know everything.
Yeah.
So when you got two people that are, so right, we're going to get this right. We don't know everything, but we're going to damn side try our hardest to make sure we know as much as we possibly can. Then the whole outlook totally changes. And now you're in this space of learning, you taking on more things, and it just makes the whole process more pleasurable. If it wasn't for that rating, this podcast wouldn't exist today. So it's gone even further than that. So there's two things that obviously pick that one thing up. The second one there, if you really want to know if you understand a subject, go try and teach it.
Yeah.
And that's what you're saying there with the second one. And it's so valuable. And I just made a video the other day. It must have been, I don't know, about a month ago now, about how to prepare for your type rating. And those two things are in there.
Yeah.
But Paul, you obviously picking up a few parallels there as well.
No, look, I definitely, resonated with what you said. Finding the right sim partner, someone who's like-minded, who's got the same energy and the drive and the desire to do well is pivotal to your overall success as a team in the cockpit, because these airplanes that we're flying now are multi-crew airplanes, and if you've got that level of work ethic between the two of you, it really makes a difference. And
it is the difference.
It is the difference, yeah. And if you don't have the right sim partner, you go out and try and find the one, because it is very difficult to work like that on your own. But that said as well, something else that I picked up on what you said there was you were taking down notes in the simulator during the sim sessions. And that means to me that you obviously had an element of free RAM in your mind to be able to say, okay, I'm actually listening to what the instructor's saying.
Yeah.
And that was only because you had put in the preparation before the sim. If you don't prepare, you are so damn overwhelmed in that sim.
True.
You feel like you're in a washing machine, and you don't have the time to absorb or listen to what's being told or taught to you. And that's something that I noticed, and I could definitely commend you on that. That is just so well done.
Do you still take notes, Dave?
Yeah, I still have.
Have you still got those original notes?
I still got those original notes. Yeah. I still have the ones I take every time I fly.
Yeah, well, that's what it's all about. I've still got mine too. Yeah, from those, I've still got mine, from the start there. And I don't know how many pages there are, but, how valuable is that bit of gen? And there's so much online these days. I mean, you want to go, you talk about your third brain and all this stuff. But that's what it is for us. Every time you come out of a session, you write something down, and over time you've got this wonderful book of knowledge. And a lot of it, as you say, is actual journaling to yourself.
Yeah.
And by writing it down, it just makes more sense.
So much so that I recently moved, and when I was going through some of my old stuff, packing up boxes or whatever, when I was reading through those notes, I could still hear the instructor's voice.
In your head.
When we were taking those notes, I was like, I remember that conversation and that briefing and that debriefing.
I can go one step further. I had an instructor that was so vuss. I'm not going to mention his name. He's no longer around with us. But if I smell cologne that he used to wear, it takes me right back into that simulator. Yeah. But no, that's cool. I love that, Dave. That's highly valuable to anyone that's about to go and start a type rating. So now we've gone through the type rating. You complete the type rating, and I always say, I have ever since I started here at Simaero, I always said, if you can walk out that door at the end of your training a better aviator than you were than when you walked in, then we've done our job.
Yeah.
And obviously you're trying to make the already good aviators better. And you probably, you're spending a lot of the time, passing on knowledge and as we've mentioned already, seeing if this student or crew member is willing to take that knowledge on and see if they actually make an adjustment in their own way they do things. So now you've got your type rating, you leave us here at Simaero and you go back to Nigeria. What's the next step? Because there's a lot of training going on around the world. So you decide to go back to Nigeria. What do you do?
After the training, I think the first thing was actually putting my CV out there, like to get a job and all that. And then few months, I think it was a month before my simulator lapsed, I got my first job. But within that time, while I was applying, there were some guys who actually wanted to come to South Africa for the training. I used to like tutor them within the time. So everything I had learned from the training, I'd sit them down and be like, okay, guys, I'll spend time with you, show you what I learned. This is everything you should expect from the sim. And it's actually like I earlier spoke about, it helps you to retain a lot. So I went forward to doing some courses online, like basic courses I could get my hands on, CRM and everything. Those courses that, because obviously at that point in time, I didn't have a job. So there was pretty much no company to teach me all these things and all this information I couldn't get. So I'd go online and look for courses and stuff I could learn, which I could afford at that time. So within that period, it actually helped me to learn a few things, safety management system, CRM courses, basic ones actually, um, leadership courses, anything I could lay my hands on. And then now the best teacher for me at that point in time was YouTube. So I would follow up the guys, Mentor Pilot, Pilot Joe, Aviation Safety Network. I would watch a lot of things, get to educate myself more of what I would see or what I would experience, or someday it could happen, or something I could learn from these people.
Yeah.
So looking up to these guys, actually, that was how I came in contact with Bryan podcasts at some point in the future. But at that point in time, I was always online. If you check my YouTube up till this moment, you see the subscribed pages are mostly aviation pages. Like I find this thrill in seeing something related to airplanes, and it's something I'm not aware of. So the ways I actually learn is intentional research. I probably will research on my own and self-improvement, maybe like trying to learn things. And then sometimes I brainstorm, like I could call my friend who probably just had a bad day at work or something and ask him, how was your day? How was the flight? What happened today? This weather, what's the difference? Like, why did this happen? And then even while flying or even while in the airplane, we speak about this thing. So these were just little tips and pieces that I used to play around with to have kept myself up to this point.
So you got a passion as well for finding stuff that you don't know, to filling the knowledge box to make it keep growing. Eh?
Yeah.
Oh well, pretty obvious why he is where he is.
Exactly.
Huh? Yeah.
So you got a job then eventually.
Okay. Yeah, I got my first job in September of 2018. It was actually a short one, but I had the opportunity to learn a lot within that period. We flew private for a private company. It was charter operations, obviously.
On the 145?
No, on the Legacy 600, yeah. I think we flew there for like a few months, and then the airplane got repossessed for some stuff. And then afterwards, 2019, no job. Back to the market. So I started struggling with a few things. Then I was like, oh, now I had this opportunity and it was short-lived. And now what do I do? What's the next job coming from? Because airlines at that point in time, a lot of guys who came to the side for the training had been back to the airlines and flying and all that. So there was no opportunity looming. So I was a bit, I wouldn't say I was a bit downcast at that point, but I kept myself up by constantly reminding myself that, okay, dude, you had 5 years to wait for one opportunity, which you got. And now you're looking towards 2019. Yes, obviously another opportunity gonna come. So I kept myself alive by being positive. And eventually a couple of interviews came, but working at that point in time, I mean, like all the bits and pieces I picked up and then things I used to read up on came in handy, all the preparation, same thing, same process. and then I got another job interview. I think I had another job interview a day before the next one. So I had the first job interview. It was a written exam, and then afterwards, the next day, I got like a call just the same night to say, "Oh, dude, we have an interview coming up tomorrow. Are you going to be able to make it?" I was like, "Yeah, I'll definitely make it." And I went for the interview. We did the interview, and then the process in out there is over there in Nigeria is you do the interview and then you have to still wait for a long time, because obviously no one is going to do an interview and call you, because sometimes these airlines, the startup airlines, they don't have airplanes on ground at the moment.
They
so
put you in like a waiting pool.
Yeah, so you have to like wait for all this. And then we waited, and into the COVID year, 2020. And eventually we got our letters, and then I had to come back to Simaero for simulator, and COVID struck. So I got a job with United Nigeria Airlines that period. So that was the training I came for. I came for a recurrent because I had not flown for quite some time. So came in for the recurrent, same preparation, and we did the recurrent. The day we were about to leave the country, COVID struck, so we had to be locked down here. And we had to spend, I think, six months. And I was out here in South Africa with a lot of other guys who were still doing their trainings, and some had not completed. And it was actually one of the biggest opportunities I've had as a pilot. I mean, because that period gave me time to sit with a lot of other pilots and interact with them and understand their backgrounds, and being able to understand another person actually helps you as a person to an extent. So I understood their backgrounds, understood their knowledge levels, and tried to help them the best way I can. So I could actually, and would come here. I think you guys were aware at that time, and we'll come back to come to the sim sometimes, and I would show them. I was done with my recurrent. I could have just sat down and said, "Okay, you know what, guys, go and sort yourself out. You obviously do well, or if you don't do well, it's not my business, because we're all employees to the same company."
Yeah.
But then I felt this zeal and this refreshment from having to put them through. It felt like seeing them being better was an encouragement to me. So I would take time to show them things and show them everything I could on the airplane. And in doing that, I actually learned a lot as a person. So we even afterwards, after the COVID and everything, we went back to Nigeria, started working as airline pilots, and then a new level, because obviously I was flying charter now, and now I'm in the airlines. It's a new challenge basically, because line training, I had not gotten properly line trained, and now you're being line trained to be an airline pilot. SOPs, everything you need to adhere to is not. I'm not saying charter operation doesn't have SOPs, but we're not as strict as in the airlines, because obviously you have close to 50 passengers now and all that. Yeah. So there was a strict adherence to safety and a lot of things. It was a new challenge for me, and I learned a lot within that period. I spent 2 years in United Nigeria before moving back to the corporate sector, and it was quite the growth for me. I think having to fly more sectors daily, and then having to grow from one level to another, and then building more time and flying with different people. It's actually something, because then you're interacting with, fly with this captain today, he's this way, and you fly with this other captain today, and tomorrow he's this way. So you have to, as a person, have the ability to manage the next person. And it's actually comes with, and it takes me back, to something that's very, very important for us as aviators: attitude. Attitude is, you can build knowledge, you can build skill, attitude is something that can't be taught. Attitude has to be, it's a discipline you have to have as a person. And attitude actually encompasses a lot of things. When I was training as a pilot, back then, they were always write KSA, knowledge, skill, attitude. But they always put attitude, like capital letter, very like a bolder letter than the other speakers. Attitude is very, very important. Now, your attitude towards everything in aviation is very important. Your attitude towards your colleagues, your attitude towards even the lowest guy in the company, your attitude towards everyone actually helps a lot. Humility and having the right attitude towards our daily life and having the right attitude towards flying as a whole is actually very important.
All right, David. So you've got a good attitude. You wouldn't have got here without it. Something you've had for a while, certainly ever since I've known you. You're a mentor today. There's no question about it. You're a mentor to young African pilots around the world. You're a mentor to us in lots of ways. Attitude can't be taught. What do you do, or what input do you give youngsters that might not have? Because we didn't always have the perfect attitude. There were times, I mean, I'm quite embarrassed in some ways if I look back. And I mean, good old airline pilots, when we were with the airline, man, could we complain about things and, moan about this and that. And moaning about something is one thing. Doing nothing about it is something totally different. So, you can moan about it all day long, but if you're not willing to make a change, then you shouldn't be moaning about it. So,
your attitude would ordinarily change, I think, when you start to take on board and listen and allow yourself to follow the right influences.
So he's the influencer. How do you do it? How do you get that message across? Obviously, talking about it on the podcast there, but how do you get that message across? And I'm talking about in your personal life and in the flight deck, because I'm sure you've flown with people. You certainly will. You're going to fly with you're a captain now, but you fly with the first officer that you look at and you think, but this guy's not really interested in this job. How do you get that person to start living by your core values and seeing this industry for what it is, which is the most professional industry in the world?
Yeah. For me, like Ryan said now, listening. Listening to the other person, like the people you interact with. Now, the normal cockpit environment, let's say you come to a flight deck this morning and then you have someone different. Now you listen to them. They said there's this saying from the Qatar command upgrade manuals, says you can't learn anything, you can't listen or you can't hear anything with your mouth open. So you have to listen to the other person. You have to understand them, because basically, we as aviators, we interact with so many people every single day. You interact with the engineer, you interact with the flight dispatcher, you interact with a lot of people. Now it starts all the way from flying school. What are your core? What are the things you hold there? Are you looking towards improving on yourself? Are you looking towards growing in this profession? And if you are looking towards that, then you have to have the right mindset, and the right mindset to actually propel a good attitude. If you don't have the right mindset towards this, and for me, I think it's not background per se. It actually started off from school. Like it started off from school. Like the instructors would always try to, although it was kind of a harsh environment to an extent, because then you're faced with an instructor who comes in and he's like, "What are you doing?" and blah blah blah, and you're grounded. Go back to the hostel and stuff like that. But the humility from taking instructions, it actually helped a lot, and that humility went on into translated into my everyday, like being able to listen to the other person, listen to you, Like listen to you speak to me and tell me, okay. And then when I listen to you, I sit back for a moment and think, okay, how do I respond? How do I respond to this?
What you've said there to me is you are that way in the flight deck because that's the way you are in your everyday life.
Yeah.
So you're an embodiment of that way of thinking, whether you're in the flight deck or not.
Doesn't that fall in line with the conversation we had quite a long time ago with the red mindset?
Red and blue.
Red and blue. You know, how you react to certain instances or circumstances.
Yeah.
What you just said there was you'll take the time to listen, absorb, and then really consider your response to something. And I imagine that's how you handle a difficult situation on the flight deck when you can, as well as everything in life. And that's such a cool and calm, collected way to deal with things.
Have you ever read Carol Dweck's book on the growth mindset? You would enjoy it if you haven't. There's 3 concepts here. You tell me if you resonate with these. I'm sure you will. Skills can be cultivated through effort. The idea emphasizes that abilities and intelligence can be developed with time and perseverance, rather than being fixed traits that one is born with. It challenges the notion that talent alone leads to success and underlines the importance of continuous learning and resilience. The second one, people with a growth mindset thrive on challenges. Individuals with growth mindsets see challenges as opportunities for growth and learning. They are not deterred by setbacks or failures, but rather embrace them as parts of the learning process. The mindset fosters a love for what they are doing, even when they are facing difficulties. And the third one, the fixed mindset versus the growth mindset. The fixed mindset is encapsulated in the thought, I can't do it, while the growth mindset is represented by the belief, I can't do it yet. The distinction highlights the dynamic nature of the growth mindset, where there is always potential for further development and improvement, as opposed to the static view of abilities held by those with a fixed mindset. Good one, eh?
Deep.
Huh?
Yeah, it is.
That's a good book, that one.
Yeah.
Growth mindset. But obviously everything you've spoken about, a lot of it fits in there. It's nice to hear a story, and it's different from, the usual sort of long form show that we've done. And we want to go into this a bit more, and we've got plans through the year, Ryan, of interviewing a few more people. And we're going to always ask 3 questions. I've asked you the first one, which you answered exceptionally well. I said, what does being an aviator mean to you? And a lovely description there from just being a pilot and being an aviator, 100%. Yeah. And I think if I was asked that question, it would be pretty close to that answer that you gave, David. The second question I want to ask you is, what principle from the aviation industry do you use in your everyday life, whether consciously or subconsciously?
Okay, for me, I apply this 3 things. Safety being one, knowledge, and teamwork.
Mm-hmm.
Safety actually is
that's
the day-to-day, like it's like every pilot is meant to transport passengers from one point to another safely. But now what's your attitude towards safety?
Mm-hmm.
So that's, for me, basically my principles when it comes to safety is starts like a daily activity at home. I wake up in the morning, and the first thing I ask myself, me, the environment, and the airplane before a flight. It's just, I always ask myself when I wake up in the morning, me, my environment, the airplane.
So like, how am I?
How am I?
How's the environment?
How's the environment? And when I get to, or before I even get into the airplane, I'm thinking about the airplane.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking.
So it's not a case of arriving at work and then saying, let me have a look at the weather report today.
Yeah.
You driving to work and you're noticing there's Charlies
Exactly.
out there and the wind's blowing a different direction today. And hey, that could be a bit bumpy out there today.
Yeah. So basically I have apps on my phone. For example, like Windy. I would scroll through the whole day. It just gives you an idea of what to expect. It could change, obviously. It's not written in stone. So it could change, but then you have an understanding of what to expect and you're mentally prepared. And then you get into the airplane. From my car, I'm already thinking. I'm like, okay, I'm getting into the airplane. What are the things I would look out for? What are the things? So I always tell myself that my pre-flight starts on my bed.
Yeah.
My pre-flight starts at home. So I do the pre-flight all the way until I've gotten all my checks done, everything done. And even after that, even in flight, I'm always thinking safety, safety, safety. Now, I had this some time ago during I think it was a class, and they said each of us as aviators are safety agents. Now, as safety agents, if you are a factor 0 and your risk becomes a multiple of 0, the result will be 0. So if you are 0 as a safety agent and you're faced with risk, you won't actually amplify the risk into a hazard. So basically, it comes to mind that, oh, what if I am unsafe as a person? What if I'm not thinking safety as a person? It means that if risk gets multiplied by me, it will be amplified into a hazard or into a very hazardous situation. So I think of that. That's why I'm constantly thinking safety, situational awareness, a few things that will help me maintain that high safety threshold. And now I don't equate safety and experience. Now, some people feel like over time you build flying hours and it means that it should increase your safety man. No. I feel like it actually should put you in a position where you're actually more thorough because then you overlook a lot of things. So just being experienced doesn't mean I'm now a safe pilot. I'm now a safe aviator. No. I should actually now check myself every day. So the things I used to take for granted before, I'll take them more seriously now. So going on to knowledge, obviously we've been speaking about that, and I made emphasis to how I build my knowledge, self-improvement, intentional research, things I brainstorming and all that. I always try to learn new things. If I don't understand something, I'll come to ask. If I don't have a clear picture of something, I'll ask. It just like before my command training. Prior to that, I actually wanted to have an in-depth understanding of the RMM, and I called Keith to ask him, okay, please, can you put me through the RMM properly? I want to have a deeper understanding, because applying something you don't understand it's just useless.
Yeah.
You need to have an understanding of what, so that it becomes like a day-to-day. You don't have to think so much about it. And that's very key. Particularly knowledge is very key. Improving on what you know is very important. So every moment I have, every conversation I have, I pick one thing from it. I'm taking it today and I'm going to add it to the stock of things I already have. And then teamwork. Teamwork is very important for me. Although I wouldn't say I was initially like, I was a bit the shy person, obviously interacting with people and all that.
Well, you're married now, so now teamwork's going to come to the fore.
Exactly. so I had to build myself. I built myself to a point where I was able to work with other people, and like in a cockpit environment, not just the cockpit environment, the whole airplane as a whole, the airline, the company. You need to, teamwork is very important. Communication between one person, the whole rhythm that has to do with interacting with people because now having to understand ATC, everybody, it requires teamwork. And building that teamwork, for me, I put teamwork around communication. And communication for me is very important. Someone could say something, but did you understand it? What was the person saying to you, and all that? So, communication is very important, because communication that was not properly understood actually negatively impacts a lot, and it breaks that chain of teamwork. Then someone could say to you today, "Oh, the engineer said, there's a leak, oil leak," and you could interpret it as, why is the engineer telling me this? But he's just trying to help relay an information. And then your attitude towards receiving an information too is very important. And that's how I go back to listening. And listening is very important. That's the whole. So those are the principles for me: knowledge, safety, knowledge, and teamwork. Those are the things I've narrowed my whole daily life every time
you live.
Yeah.
Safety is always going to be there with pilots. I think it's just so inherent.
No, it's paramount. And there's something I picked up there as well is you mentioned that experience. Your experience should never lead to a level of complacency as well.
There's a wonderful graph, actually. My dad's good at it.
Yeah.
It's x-axis. I think it's experience. So it starts off at the beginning of your career, you've got low experience, but a high level of conscientiousness. And then the other direction, high experience, lower level of conscientiousness. And where those two meet is your sort of danger zone. So it's your conscientiousness that gets you out of trouble at some point. It's your experience that gets you out of trouble some points, but you don't ever want to be relying on one more than the other.
I really resemble the drag curve.
It's a bit of a drag curve. And the other one that you might like, and maybe you can include this the way you were speaking about safety there. Threat multiplied by vulnerability equals risk.
Yeah.
So I quite like, because it takes the whole safety concept and it narrows it down to an equation. Threat multiplied by vulnerability equals risk. You got zero vulnerability, you got zero risk.
Yeah, it's quite something that I think a lot of pilots as well don't maybe necessarily take into their careers. They understand that safety is part of their SOPs. They'll be protected by the SOPs, which you will if you follow them properly in a lot of ways. But it is definitely more of an attitude and a mindset and how you approach everything that you do that enhances that.
I like that one. Time for the next question.
Yeah.
If you could send your younger self a WhatsApp message and impart some text, no more than a paragraph, containing something of value that you have gained, lost, or underestimated on your journey so far, what would you write yourself?
Patience.
Like it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Belief.
You wait for it.
If you want it enough.
Yes. You just need to be patient.
I like it.
Yeah. It's like Bryan and I, we're waiting very patiently for our next 10,000 subscribers. And it will happen.
It will happen.
Will it happen? It will happen when there's an action towards it. Huh?
Of course.
If there's no action towards it, then it will never happen. And if you're not putting in the work and you're not gaining the knowledge and you're not asking questions and you're not moving forward, it absolutely won't happen. So it all goes back to that attitude that we've spoken a lot about today. David, where do you want to go next? I mean, you've got a good job at the moment. You're flying a lovely aeroplane around the skies, but all of us have ambitions as aviators. There's always something that you want to do, and if you don't get to tick that box, you might look at your career and say, man, I wish I had done that. Is there something there that you really want to do? To me, it looks like you'd be a great instructor one day to impart the knowledge in the simulator, but maybe it's to go fly 777 for Emirates or something like that. Anything big that's up ahead in the future for David?
Actually, it's two things. At the moment, I'm trying to build my command time, obviously, just to have an experience and basically get every process or every position is a learning process. That's how it is for me. So I want to learn a lot within this current position and then apply it to whatever position I'm looking towards next. For me, the big thing is why I said it's two things is because actually someday I have airplanes I would love to fly, particularly the Gulfstream.
Mm. Yep.
Yeah, the Gulfstreams, the newer versions, and the G700, or maybe work with Emirates or something bigger, like fly within a bigger setting and build some level of experience. Because obviously, as much as we as aviators have, the knowledge we have is, I wouldn't say it's limited, but we know what we know within the environment we're in. And then when you go into someplace new, you experience something different. Now it expands, it gives you this exposure to something new, something you have not really encountered, no matter how you think of it. But being in that position gives you a new experience. And for me, I'm looking towards that someday, flying in maybe Qatar, Riyadh, so Emirates,
something fast or something heavy.
Something fast or heavy. It actually streamlines it. Actually.
There is something to be said for flying for a big operation like an Emirates or a Qatar. And, you know, in some ways you're a number in a system, but in other ways you're flying for this machine that is just rolling ahead, and you're an integral part of that machine. And then I also think an amazing thing, and it doesn't matter if you're flying 5 passengers or 400 of them, but I'm sure flying 400 of them gives a slightly different sensation when, everyone behind you, they're having their meal, and that level of responsibility that you have. And I think that's what is so lost on so many younger aviators, is they cannot comprehend that level of responsibility. And why your performance has to be at a certain level. And if your performance is not at that level, then you simply cannot fly. You simply shouldn't be allowed to fly. I've got a simple thing I showed Ryan yesterday. You know, I always hold up my phone and I show the students. I say, look, that's my family on my phone. And if I won't let them jump in an airplane with you, how can we sign you out and expect you to fly an airplane with other people's families? So it ain't going to happen. So there's such a high level that is required because the responsibility is so high. And unless you've got the right attitude, unless you're seeking knowledge, and unless you've got a growth mindset, you'll probably never ever understand that. And if you don't understand that, it'll make you a very dangerous aviator and probably someone that you don't need in the industry. And we all know people like that. They are around. But to talk to someone like you and hear about your experiences and your knowledge and to pass things on, from all of us that have worked with you, we've learned from you. We all respect you immensely, David. You're not only a mentor to other young African aviators, you're a mentor to us. Keep it up, keep inspiring, and we look forward to hearing your future success and get you on the show again and hear about the next step.
David, thanks so much for your time today. Thanks for, imparting some of your knowledge and your experience with us. And it's been a great conversation. I really do hope that this conversation lands on a lot of ears that need to hear it because it's very inspiring. And as Bryan said earlier, you are a mentor, and best of luck with your career and your newlywed scenario.
The next phase.
That's where I wanted to interject it earlier and say communication is going to become very important in that aspect.
Listening is actually becoming the day's job. You have to listen, and sometimes it's like, okay, you just have to listen.
I have to tell you quickly about my communication thing. My wife hates it. Okay, so I asked you a question. Have you taken anything from the aviation industry and brought it into your everyday life? And I'm sure all aviators do this. You're working on something, there's something important going on in your head, and the wife comes, it's got to ask the question now. What comes out your mouth? Stand by.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Don't say
She hates. She hates it, but
true.
it's like there's a difference between communication and effective communication. Effective communication. Stand by. I'm dealing with something more important right now, but I will get back to you. But yeah, as Ryan said, David, absolute pleasure. I'm sure this will fall on the right ears. I hope it inspires you, inspire us, and yeah, just keep it up.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me on the program, and I'll still keep following Bryan.
You better.
Seriously.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you so much, guys.
Cheers, man.
Cheers. Bye for now.
Bye.